And when I focus on what I can do best and I lean on other people for what they do best, we all do better. Another lesson I learned this year is that I need and I benefit from having some white space and margin in my life. When my calendar is packed back to back, I am not at my best and work can start to feel like a grind. But when I just give myself a little breathing room, then my creativity really flows and I do much better work. So, what are your lessons? Look for the patterns. Look for what worked and what didn't. Look at when you felt most energized versus when you felt drained. And look at those places where you really made progress versus where you spun your wheels. Welcome. You're listening to This Leader, the podcast. If you lead people and are seeking the transformational, high-impact secrets that will lead to greater joy and fulfillment in your work, will optimize your team performance, and will help you create a happy, highly productive workplace, then you are this leader and you're in the right place. I'm your host, Claire Laughlin, and each week my guests and I will explore the mindsets, techniques, and actionable strategies that will help you build the career, team, and organization of your dreams. Because I believe no one should have to suffer in a dysfunctional workplace. Let's get started. Hi there. Welcome to This Leader. You know what I did a few weeks ago? I sat down with my laptop, a cup of coffee, my calendar open, and I started my end of year reflection. This is one of my all-time favorite rituals, and I've got to share it with you because it has made such an astounding improvement in the ways that we work for me and for my team. So let me tell you how it goes. Most years, my team and I, we rent a beach house for a few days, and we spend 3 full days walking the beach, eating good food, and doing deep reflection and planning work. It's not a vacation exactly, but it does not feel like work in the traditional sense. It's a beautiful mix of strategic thinking, personal sharing, and genuine connection. And honestly, it's become one of the most valuable things we do all year. This year's a little different. We've got some new babies in our lives, so the beach house had to wait. But I've already started the process on my own because I cannot end the year without it. And here's what I see happening with so many leaders that I work with. They're either feeling too busy for end of year reflection, or they're feeling this sort of vague guilt about everything that didn't happen. And I get it. But neither of those approaches will help you grow quite like this ritual I'm going to suggest. So today, I want to share the structure that we use, which is a real actionable process that you can use whether you have a team or you're flying solo. So this version is adapted from a book called Your Best Year Yet. And so I'm using loosely the Best Year Yet framework. It's a great book and I highly recommend it. It'll just take you deeper on all this. I'm just going to give you the highlights that we use, okay? I learned this from my dear friend and colleague, Jennifer Turner Davis, who has facilitated this process with me in the past. And I promise you, this isn't your typical, like, what went well and what could be better exercise. We're going deeper. We're looking for patterns, and we're turning those patterns into powerful guidelines that will actually help you show up better next year. So you ready? Let's dive in. Okay, so here's how this works. You're going to ask yourself or your team 3 questions. Just 3 right now, but don't rush through these. These questions deserve your full attention. Question number 1, what did I or did we accomplish this year? And I want you to go beyond the obvious big wins. Yes, include your big wins, obviously, right? But I also want you to look for the quiet victories. Look for relationships that you built or crises that you navigated, that didn't turn into something bad. Look for small pivots that made a big difference. For me, in this past year, launching this podcast, that was a huge accomplishment. I had been thinking about doing this for years, but this year, I finally did it. So that goes at the top of the list. That really matters. But you know what else I accomplished that wasn't on any goal list? I got better at saying no. I turned down a couple of projects that would have stretched me too thin. And that is an accomplishment, my friends, even though it doesn't show up on some revenue report, right? And there were personal victories. My husband and I went to Vietnam for 3 weeks. That was a big win. That had been on my bucket list for a long time. And I spent more time with my parents, and that's really important to me. And so now if you're doing this with a team, ask, what did we accomplish together? Individually too, but like, what did we accomplish together? Not just deliverables, but what did we build as a team? Did we improve our communication? Did we handle conflict better? Did we support each other better through a tough season? Look for the subtle wins in addition to the obvious ones and take your time with this question. Make a real list. Let it emerge. Let it come to you. Look back at your calendar, flip through week by week by week, and really think about the things that go beyond your typical list of outcomes. You'll be surprised by how much you actually did. Okay, so once that has settled, move on to question number 2, which was like, what was disappointing for you or for us this year? What was for you individually or for the team this year? What didn't go as planned, right? What didn't we do? Okay. And this is where it gets really real. What didn't happen that you wanted to happen? What goals fizzled? What projects never got off the ground? What relationships frayed? What was delayed or disruptive? Disrupted, I'm sorry. I even want you to think about things that were out of your control but felt disappointing. Get those on paper. And listen, this isn't about beating yourself up. We are not wallowing here. We're just gathering data. For me, I can look at my list and see a clear pattern. There are things I really planned for, like this podcast, for example, my trip to Vietnam. Those things happened. And then there were a lot of things that I tried to squeeze in between other projects, and many of those just sort of flailed. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like those ideas you had where you thought, oh, I can just add this. It won't take much time. Yeah, those almost never worked out for me the way I hoped this year. One example was I created a whole library of downloadable resources for my website, and I'm super proud of those. Those are big wins. Great idea. And it took a lot of work. But what I didn't plan for was the follow through to get those really out into the world. So there they sit for now, right? So take your time and look beneath the surface. You might find that many of your accomplishments have sort of a shadow side to them, or that some of those shadows or disappointing moments are accomplishments that didn't go quite as planned. And remember, you can do this individually and also with your team. Okay, so now you've got those two kind of lists. Now, question number 3, step back. What did we learn? This is where the magic happens. Step back and really look at both lists and just absorb it. Look at that big list of accomplishments that you've made and your disappointments. I like to do this on flip charts, honestly, because I like to stand back literally and look. Here's pages of things that went well and pages of things that didn't quite go as planned. And now I want you to look for the patterns that you see. For me, some are crystal clear. Like I mentioned, the things I planned for, really planned for, those happened. The things I tried to squeeze in, they didn't. Or if they did happen, they were mediocre, you know? When I planned the whole implementation, it worked. When I stopped short of the full implementation plan, well, those are the ones that felt disappointing. The real lesson here, I succeed when I do proper planning, when I block the time, when I treat a project and look at all stages of the work and I treat it like all stages of the work matter instead of just pretending that it won't take resources to carry things all the way over the finish line. Another great lesson I learned, get help, right? There are amazing people out there eager to do a project or to join your team. Find those folks, use their talents and skills, bring them on board. I got so much further this year on some of my projects because I surrounded myself by amazing creative people who had expertise in the areas that I don't. And when I focus on what I can do best and I lean on other people for what they do best, we all do better. Finally, another lesson I really learned this year is that I need and I super benefit from having some white space and margin in my life. When my calendar is packed back to back, I am not at my best and work can start to feel like a grind. But when I just give myself a little breathing room, well, then my creativity really flows and I do much better work. So, what are your lessons? Look for the patterns. Look for what worked and what didn't. Looked at when you felt most energized versus when you felt drained. And look at those places where you really made progress versus where you spun your wheels. This is the raw material we're going to use in the next section. Okay, so now you've got your lessons. That's good. But here's what I've learned over the years. Lessons are good, but guidelines are actionable. So let me explain. A guideline is a short, pithy, positive advice to self type statement. Think fortune cookie wisdom that really works. They're, 3 to 5 words. So here's some of mine from over the years. Here's one: do less. That's my guideline. Claire, do less. That's advice to self. Here's another one: plan the work. Okay. And another one: first things first. And of course, yes, that was Stephen Covey's words, first things first, but they sure resonate with me. These come directly from my lessons learned over the years, which, by the way, seem to repeat for me. Remember how I learned that I succeed when I do proper planning? Well, that became plan the work as a guideline. And that one, yes, that seems to pop up every year. And you know what? It helps. Every single time I'm tempted to squeeze something in, to add one more thing, I need to remember, Claire, plan the work. It's a reminder, it's a redirect, and it's advice from past me to future me. So here's how you create your own guidelines. Take your lessons learned, right? What did you learn from looking at your lists, and distill those down. Make them directive but kind. Make them short enough that you'll actually remember them. So if your lesson was something like this, like, well, I burned out because I didn't take breaks, then your guideline might be remember to rest. Okay. If your lesson was, I lost momentum on projects when I didn't check in regularly with my team, it's a lot of words, but your guideline could be connect weekly or check in early and often or something like that. You're looking for just 3 to 5 guidelines, not 20, not 50, just a couple of core truths that will really make a difference in everything you do in the coming year. So if you're doing this with a team, here's where it gets super powerful. Do the individual reflection first. So each person creates their own guidelines and then come together and share them. I promise you, this creates such a cool connection, because when you hear your teammates say, hey, my guideline is to ask for help sooner, you realize like, oh, they struggle with that too. We're in this together. We should rely on each other, ask each other, do you need help? Things like that. And you might notice themes. Like if 3 people have a guideline about communication, guess what? That might become a team operating principle for you. That might be something you collectively commit to improving. This is why we spend a full day on this with teams. You need time for the individual work and that collective conversation. You need time to really dig into the patterns and be vulnerable and laugh and connect. This isn't really a 2-hour meeting, my friends. This is more like a retreat. Okay. And if you're doing this solo, that's okay too. Actually, this year I did it over a number of days, a little bit each day, but I still want you to go through all the steps and create your guidelines and share them with somebody. Share it with an accountability partner, a mentor, a friend. Put them somewhere visible. Make them real and use them to improve at a really core level. These guidelines, they become your North Star for the coming year. Okay, now we're going to plan for your big wins, right? So you've got your guidelines, you've reflected, you've created those guidelines. Now let's look forward. But at this moment, we are not planning everything. We're not creating a massive goal list that covers every project. Why? Well, because for starters, that would take a long time. And if you're trying to do this in a day, it's probably not going to work. But I also don't want you to end on an overwhelming note. Instead, I want you to ask yourself one key question. Like, what will I be really disappointed if I don't do next year? If I don't accomplish this thing, what will be really disappointing? Not what should I do or what would be nice to do or even what do I really want to do? That's a great question too. But what will genuinely disappoint you if it doesn't happen? Or the flip side, what is super energizing for you? What's the real win that you're looking for in the coming year? For me, last year, it was this podcast. Like I knew I had to start it. I could not let another year pass without doing it. No matter what else happened, this had to be one of my big wins. So I planned it and I prepared for it. I blocked the time. My team and I mapped out a full process and we found the support we needed and we did it. And I took a couple of important trips with my family. I found those trips, they need to go on the calendar first or they just don't happen. So what is your version of that? Maybe it's finally taking a course that you've been waiting to take or leading a major change initiative at work, or maybe it's developing a successor, right? So you can move into a new role. or taking a real vacation with your family. Identify a handful of big wins, things that really are driving you. Just be sure to plan for the ones that matter most. And here's the critical part: get them on the calendar now. Block the time, schedule the milestones, plan for the capacity that you are going to need. And this also means looking at your team. Like, when are people taking vacations? What life events are happening? Where might your capacity be tight in the coming year? You can't plan for every little thing, but you can plan for the big rocks. And when you do, everything else is going to fit around them more easily. So this is where your guidelines come in handy too, because if one of your guidelines is plan the work, well, this is your start. And if your guideline is do less, then choose 2 big wins across the year instead of 4. That is when you start living your commitment. Okay, one more thing before we wrap up today. Let's talk about giving back. Imagine you've had this great day. You've done the deep work. You've reflected. You've created guidelines. You've identified your big wins. You've got them on your calendar. It's all looking right back at you from flip charts on the wall. And now I want to encourage you to add one more element to your end of year ritual. And it doesn't necessarily need to happen on the same exact day, but do something really meaningful that gives back. Most teams, do a holiday meal together, or maybe they exchange some gifts, and that is wonderful. Please keep doing that if that's part of your ritual. But what if you also added just a little something that creates deeper meaning and broader connection? Like participating together in a toy drive, or going out and buying gifts for needy families, doing a volunteer activity, or serving your community in some way. These kind of giving activities can be so powerful. First, because doing this creates connection, like between you and your team members, but also connection to a greater purpose. It reminds you that your work isn't just about hitting targets. It's about making an impact. And second, it builds that kind of connection in a different way because you're working side by side on something that has nothing to do with your usual work. And that can be really special. Finally, it supports your community. And at a time when we're all thinking about what we've accomplished and what we've learned, contributing to the community around us just feels right. So keep it simple. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Just encouraging you to think about something beyond, your typical dinner and presents. Okay, so let's bring this home. When should you do this ritual? Well, ideally, right about now, maybe even earlier than now, but here we are. Late November or early December is a great time to do this before the holiday chaos really kicks in. But listen, if you missed that window, it's okay. Do it at the very end of the year. Do it in January, even early February. Better late than never. If you have a team, try to block a full day, not a 2-hour meeting, or, at least 2 half days, maybe a real day where you can slow down, go deep, and do this work justice. Change your environment if you can. Rent a conference room somewhere, go off site, make it special. And if you're solo, block an afternoon. Grab your journal, change your scenery, give yourself permission to really think. Okay, so here's your action steps. Little summary. 1, schedule the time. Put this on the calendar before it fills up with something else. 2, use those reflection questions. What did I accomplish? What was disappointing? And what did I learn from that? 3, create your guidelines for the coming year. Just a few pithy statements, lessons, advice to self that capture your lessons learned. 4, identify your big wins for next year. Like, what do you really have to do? What's really calling to you? What will you be really disappointed if it doesn't get done? Get those on your calendar and block the time you'll need to be successful. And finally, plan something meaningful for giving back. And look, if you want help facilitating this process for your team, I'd love to support you. This is exactly the kind of work I do. And you can book a free consultation with me at clairelaughlin.com. And we could talk about what that retreat day could look like for your team and whether this is a fit. Okay? Here's what I know. The end of the year provides a very special opportunity. We're closing one year, we're opening another. Take this time to pause and reflect. Don't let this time become a frantic race to the finish line where you collapse in exhaustion and fail to absorb all the ways you've grown. Let this ritual be a gift to yourself and your team, to your future self who's going to thank you. So when it gets to the new year and you're super energized and focused on the right things, it's really important. Take the time, do the work. It's worth it. Thanks for listening, as always. And until next time, go lead the way. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. To learn more about my services and for lots of free resources and additional tools to enrich your journey, visit my website and subscribe to my newsletter at clairelaughlin.com. If you have a question about leadership, teams, or organizational culture you'd like me to address on the podcast, please reach out to me at support@clairelaughlin.com and connect with me on social channels @ClaireLaughlin Consulting. Until next time, lead the way.